everyone, and welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate, the CEO of Command Your Brand. And we help CEOs and founders to make a really big impact out there in the world. If you want to grab our new book, which was ranked #1 in the PR category on Amazon, head over to bestpodcastbook.com. That's bestpodcastbook.com. Also, a reminder, if you're brand new to the show, to like this video, leave a comment, and also to smash that subscribe button if you want to take command of your brand and figure out how to get your message out there in a better way. Our guest today, I am very excited for. He has been in the podcast world for a very long time. He's also somebody that knows a thing or two about building wealth and creating impact. Damion Lupo, welcome to the show, man.
Jeremy, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Damion, for people that may not be familiar with you and your work, man, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I mean, the project that I've been working on for the last couple of years, it's called FrameTec. It's a construction disruptor. And over the last 20 years, I've launched 70 plus businesses and built them from 0 up to as high as 9+ figures. So this is really all of that, the last 20 years coming together, building something that I see as probably the most substantial, impactful project that I've ever had the opportunity to take part in. And we're basically helping to solve the housing problem, the shortage that we've got, which is a massive problem. Probably just about everybody listening can think about that and go, yeah, that actually is a problem. I've heard about that in the news or had a hard time building a house. So that's the project I get to work on here in Arizona. And really, as it rolls out across the country, it's a project that impacts the whole country.
So I guess let's talk about that too, because I think when people don't understand construction, whether you're investing in construction or whether you're running a company or something like that, there's a few big problems. One of you mentioned is the housing crisis. Another thing is as well is like there's just a lot of sunk costs in those businesses as well. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like when you look at FrameTec, what are those big problems and what's exciting about FrameTec in comparison?
Well, there's a long list of problems in construction. One of the problems is after 2008, you had a lot of people and a lot of companies that left the industry. They just stopped. They said, okay, we're done. We bankrupted, or it just became too hard. So you had a lot of the supply chain that left. And specifically when you're talking about building framed houses or apartments, traditionally, there's a bunch of people out there swinging hammers in the sun or in the cold, and it's a brutal process. Mm-hmm. So you've got less and less people that really want to be doing those type of projects. More and more people want to do coding. They want to do things that are really not out in the elements where they're getting their butt kicked. And so you've got a lack of people wanting to do it. And a huge problem in this industry is you've got delays. You've got it's hard to predict when you're building a project if and when people are going to show up, whether the weather is going to cooperate, whether it's going to rain or snow. Or we had
I'm laughing because you're saying this to me on a day that this actually happened. So we've been on like construction on our bathroom for a year. They took our not for a year, since September. They're turning our single bathroom and expanding into a half bath and everything else. And it's kind of been like, some days they show up, some days they don't. Today they're like, it may or may not snow, so we're not coming. So I totally get you, man.
Yeah, and you know what? And you're out in the Northeast, and some people would say, well, that maybe the problems are different. They're actually the same problems everywhere. You've got in Arizona, we had a freaking hurricane that came in the middle of us building our facility, and I call it a hurricane. It was sideways rain that we have as we were pouring concrete. So you always have these elements. You're always dealing with this, and it puts a lot of pressure on trying to time everything. So that's one of the problems. How do you organize timeframes so you can line people up so you're not wasting time? If you've got a project and you're delayed, that's just costing a builder money, which ultimately costs the person buying the house more money because it costs more for the house. So our whole project was, how do we streamline the whole process of framing and make this predictable? And so ultimately what this looks like is we're building the house, all the pieces of the bones, the floors, the roofs, the walls inside of a facility. And then we take that, then we put it together on site, and it's our team. So it's the framing is vertically integrated. And what that means is builders, developers can say, okay, here's a house, here's an apartment that we want you to build. And within 2 weeks, they have the whole house framed on site. That usually takes 2 to 3 months, and It's very unpredictable when it's going to happen. We can tell them with precision within a 48-hour window, here's exactly when the house is going to be framed up. So they say, wow, okay, well, that's one problem you just solved. And then there's a whole bunch more. But that starts the conversation where they say, okay, how fast can I get in line to buy your product?
So I got a couple really interesting questions on that one because he really got my brain turning now because I'm trying to like visualize what this process looks like. But I do have to say I was dying when you talked about sideways rain because I could only think of that scene in Forrest Gump when he's like, we had a little bit of stinging rain, we had fat rain, skinny rain, even rain that looked like it was coming up from the ground. Anyway, but I guess talking about that, Damion, like, what does that process look like then? Because you see traditional framing, like I have an idea of what that looks like. So is this like you're building a facility and logistics is a really big part of it? So then it's kind of important, where each is being built, or what does that like process side of things look like?
So what we did is we took a lot of innovation. We have our team, the co-founders with me have been involved in trust building and manufacturing for 50 years, since the 70s, literally since before you and I were alive. They were building these things. And what they did is they took all of their experience and they said, how can we automate a ton of this and use technology? So like one of the things that we did is we built this patented process to have almost no waste. So when we buy boards and we're putting our stuff together, we have literally virtually no waste. And normally it's 15 to 20% of the wood is thrown away. The dumpsters you see.
How do you do that? Because I guess like when you look at it, like it's like, you cut it or you cut it wrong, or like maybe like, okay, the piece wasn't long enough. Like obviously it's patented, so you can probably only say so much, but like how do you save that much?
Well, the great thing is when you have a patent, it's all public, so we can just talk about it, and so that's actually fun. It's not like it's a secret black box and nobody can know.
Cool.
You can see the plans on the patent site with the government. But
I guess that goes to show you I'm not a lawyer, so there we go.
Well, it's funny. People will say we have a secret trade, and then you're like, "What is it?" I can't tell you. Just be a part of this. You're like, "Well, I don't know what I'm getting involved with." Well, I can tell you. Normally, what happens if you have like a 10-foot wall, you have to buy say 12-foot boards, and then you cut off 2 feet of them, and that's all just waste. It just goes into a dumpster. Our process uses a thing called a finger jointer, where basically we attach the ends of each of these boards together and we glue it. So what happens is you have a stronger board, and this happens on job sites. It's already been used for a long time. We're doing that in the factory. What does that mean? It means that we can buy any size board, take those boards, run them together, and we have one continuous infinite board, and then we cut it exactly to length. So we don't have a 2-foot piece missing. We have no feet missing. Yeah. The only thing we have like a corner cut, and that might be a tiny amount. So instead of 15 or 20%, we might lose 1%. And so that's part of the technology. Interestingly enough, people say, well, you're gluing these pieces together. Is that safe? And the reality is it's actually stronger because the glue and the joint is stronger than the board itself. So we have this process that eliminates waste, makes it stronger, makes it more precise, and we can buy basically any size board that's available on the market, which means we don't have to buy a 12-foot board. We can buy all the 6-foot boards. So we save money there too. So we're able to do it more cost effectively, faster, more precise. Like every part of the process is better inside this system.
So let me ask you this too, because now my brain's looking at logistics. Like, I guess how does that work? Because like I've seen like, you're on the highway and you see somebody that has like a modular house built, right? Like, and you're like, oh, there's that one part, they're going to connect it to the other part. So I guess how does that work when you're talking about framing? Are these like full framing pieces that are going out, or do they go out more like it's like a Lego set and it's like, okay, you put 1 to 2 to 3 and then we put it together? What does that look like?
Yeah. So here's one of the cool things about integrating the whole process. We have all these, we build each of the wall pieces, each of the floor pieces, the floor trusses and the roof trusses. And so we have all these pieces, and then we load them on our semis, on the flatbeds, and we have them in a specific order. So they show up on the job site. We have a team of 5 guys that puts these things together.
So they're in the order they would have to come off the truck. That's really smart, man. That handles a lot of waste, like waste of time.
A ton of wasted time, and people are like, well, which piece is going where? I mean, they probably would double the amount of time at least just putting pieces, moving them. We touch them one time, they pick them up, they put them in place, so we know exactly where they're going and how they're going together. So that's the process. Nobody's ever done anything like this before. Wow. We're putting it all together. So the efficiencies, you can just literally somebody gives us plans, Jeremy. And we take those plans, we convert them inside of our plant, we build all the pieces, and we frame the thing. It's approximately 2 weeks, sometimes less. Normally, that's a 2 to 3 month process. So we're shaving off 75 to 80% of the time, and it's better quality. So just imagine how big of a deal that is. It changes the industry.
So let me ask you this then, because I imagine like geographical limits would be like one of the things that would slow you down. So are like, I guess, number one, like, do you currently have facilities in different locations? Number two, is that kind of part of the expansion plan of building other, because then you can get to places faster, right? Like if you want to go to Wisconsin, it's going to take you a long time from Arizona. But if you want to go to Colorado, you can get there quick. So I guess like, what does that look like?
It's actually the same problem that mattresses used to have, and now they don't because they ship UPS in a box because they're all
Mm,
shrink wrapped. But normally, you would have a facility within every major metropolis would have a mattress facility because of the logistics of shipping. Similar situation here. Within our plants serve 200 miles, and that's just because we can get our stuff on site, start doing it, and then bring the truck back. If you go beyond that, logistically, you can do it. You could go 1,000 miles, but it becomes cost prohibitive. So we have, for example, in Arizona, our first plant comes online in approximately 6 months. The second one, that's about 150 miles south of the first plant in Arizona, comes online in 2025. So these two plants will cover 95 to 99% of the population in Arizona. That's ideally what we're doing. We're picking
wow.
population centers or locations where we can serve a big part. In Texas, we'll have one that's sort of in between Dallas and Houston that will cover Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. It'll be a mega plant. It'll cover the entire state, so 22 million people get to participate. But it's localized, and we pick places, quite frankly, that are business friendly. And so the rollout plans across the country, you can imagine they're kind of mostly along the south because that's where people are flooding in. That's where
Mm-hmm.
they're very pro business. But it's within 200 miles is typically what we're targeting.
So let me ask you this too, because I guess whenever you're expanding, like, an endeavor, like, one of the most important things is like, who are the opinion leaders? How should I connect with them? How should I get out there? And I guess for you guys, it's probably like, builders in different states, whether it's, here in New Jersey, we have Toll Brothers is one of the big ones, or K Hovnanian or one of those. So I guess like, what does that look like for you guys? Are you looking at like building relationships with builders to expand, or what does that look like?
So really, what's interesting is the market is begging for this solution everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
we have builders all over the country that have picked up what we're doing, and they've caught wind of it, and they're asking, when can I order? And we're saying, well, we're not literally delivering in Montana, we're not even building in Montana, or wherever it is. So the builders are hearing about it, and they're coming and they're knocking, and we have builders in Arizona almost every day reaching out saying, when can I order? So really, we know where the populations are growing. We know where this is needed, and these builders can't get the trusses, they can't get the labor fast enough. So we know that the demand is built up and pent up, and it will be for years and years and years. So it's the builders are basically just waiting. We've got 3 public companies that have already voiced interest in buying out the entire operation because
Wow.
they want the capacity. And we said, you can't have all the capacity. You literally can be a customer. We'd love to have you. But the reality is it's desperately needed. So it doesn't matter whether it's Texas or Florida or North Carolina, some of the markets we're going to expand into, there's this built up demand, and it will continue because the population is moving into these places.
And I imagine too, for you guys, since you are so processed, like another thing that would be a big issue in like, putting framing together would be like, just the raw materials. So I guess in that too, you're probably able to do your orders and things differently. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about having people, there was a company that tried to do something similar, and it was a bunch of Google guys, and they thought we're super high tech, and we got all our money from Google, our Google bucks, and they went out and got their butts kicked, and I think they ended up burning like $1 billion just making, because they had no industry experience. So we come into this space with guys that have been around for 20, 30, 40, even 50 years with relationships with all the wood suppliers. So that can be a bottleneck if you don't have those relationships. These deep relationships mean that we know where our wood's coming from. Most of the wood comes from Canada. We've got those suppliers. We go direct to them. So we've got a lot of built-in efficiencies because of multi-decade relationships that makes the business really a unicorn. It's kind of funny because normally you hear the word unicorn, you think $1 billion.
Yes.
Right now, the organization's worth, it was just appraised. It's right at 500 million, and we're not online yet. So this truly is a unicorn when we're online. We expect it to be worth about $2 billion in Arizona. So that's what happens when you solve such a big problem. You have this massive value because you've created so much value.
And I guess in terms of like when you're looking at the type of like building that you're doing, I imagine like it probably makes sense to focus on some markets over others. Like, are there certain types of buildings you're focusing more on? And I guess in the future, do you see yourself adding other verticals? Like maybe, okay, we're doing wood framing. We might add like, steel framing in the future. Like what does all that look like?
So right now, this is narrowly, and this is all about the niche. Like, what's the problem, the niche that we can solve? And our solution is for really houses and apartments. We can do hotels up to a certain height, because you get hotels that are 10, 15 stories. You're looking at steel infrastructure. You need things that have more structural ability to control the weight. In ours, we're looking at apartments that are up to, say, 4 stories, which is most of the apartment structures that are being built in the United States.
Mhm.
Apartments are even better because they're more efficient. You have literally 100 houses all stuck together on one piece of property, which is basically what an apartment is: 100, 200, 500. So this works for houses and apartments for the most part, and some smaller hotels. The interesting thing is, when we're online and in full capacity in Arizona, we will literally only be able to serve about 3 to 5% of the market of
Mhm.
what's happening. So when you start thinking about that, you realize we don't really need to go out and dominate all these different things. I think
Sure.
they'll naturally come into play. And people have said, what about things like the other trades, like plumbing and electrical? Could those things be expanded? Yeah. Here's the cool thing: the plant that we built is basically a model that we're building over and over again. So it's kind of like a franchise. When
Mhm.
you have that, you don't have to re-engineer everything. So it makes it a lot faster to go and expand and roll it out. And then we
Mhm.
solve that one problem that serves everybody else.
I think that's the thing that's really exciting to me, is like the thing that I see is like, you pick a geographic area to start. Really smart to start in a warm environment too, because it's going to be easier for construction. But I guess like the other part of it is as well is like you could just put hubs in various places, and it's a way to expand really really quickly, and even I guess opening an opportunity to others or something like that if you want to do it. And I guess getting into kind of the investment half of that as well. Like there are multiple hats that you wear, and I guess another thing that you look at is you're excited about what you're doing at FrameTech also as an investment too. So I guess what does that part of things look like as it connects to the retirement side of things,
Well, so my partner David
or
Morris and
retirement
I,
investing? Sorry.
yeah, absolutely. So my partner David Morris and I were looking at the work we were doing with people's retirement accounts through EQRP over the years, and we said, what can we do to help these people with their retirement money, doing something outside of Wall Street? Because people get control of their retirement money through the EQRP that we set up for years, and then they're sort of stuck and they're like looking for deals. And so we said, okay, well, what's out there? And so we spent a number of years looking, and what happened. This all came together because of relationships, 25-year relationships, where we said, this is literally the perfect thing to be able to offer to people in our community. It's really an institutional quality investment for in private equity for accredited people, for the everyday average person that's saying, I don't want to be in stocks necessarily. I want to be a part of something where I can be building something like it's actually meaningful. And interestingly enough, when you do something that's very meaningful, sometimes there's an opportunity to make an incredible return. When you build something, that's like the secret in America, I think. Like what you're doing,
Hmm.
you're building a company. When you go build something, there's this incredible opportunity. If you just go buy something and speculate and say, I hope it goes up, that's different than going out and building something from the ground up. And
Hmm.
that's what we're doing. We're building from the ground up. So all the investors that come in, they say, I want to be a part of building this with you. And so we've worked with our community and the people that say, I want to invest in something outside of the S&P 500, and they get an opportunity to do very, very well with their money. And it's very real. They can put their
Hmm.
arms around it. They can walk into it and say, oh, I can touch this. I get what you're doing. It's not some black box that is mysterious that they don't really understand. Everybody can understand a wall and a floor and the shortage of people wanting to go out in the elements. So it's an incredible opportunity for people to be able to participate. And that continues as
Hmm.
we continue to build. People have the opportunity to invest in it.
Well, I think the thing that excites me about that too is like, if you look at it, like, you had a lot of speculation, with people investing in derivatives and all these different things. And like, I don't know, I feel like that's very predatory in a lot of ways, right? Because you're looking at, well, how are the loans packaged and how are these different, like, so I feel like that kind of bugs me a little bit. But if I look at like, what you're talking about, also comparing it to, building a business, is like, you're actually investing in someone building end value, not just gambling, right? And I think that's what's really exciting to me. And I think really when you look at the best money spent, it's in someone producing something, man.
That all day long. Whenever I'm looking at things that I'm investing in, if my money's going into something, I'm investing in something that's being built. I'm investing in the people and the idea that's going to solve a problem. When somebody says, "Hey, you can make a bunch of money with this," I go, "Who is it?" And they're like, "Well, it doesn't really matter. That, it's these guys. They've been doing this for a year." And I go, "I'm out." Like, I want people that have been doing it for longer than one season. Like, hey, you better have been doing this the last 3 presidential cycles, not the last city council cycle. Like, I want you to be in this thing for a long time. And I want to be a part of something that matters. It's the speculating thing. Unfortunately, we've all been trained to do that. You go into the stock market and it goes up and it goes down, and it's literally a casino. And I think people are tired of that. I've just watched people over the years say it freaks me out. Like, whether I'm up or I'm down, I'm scared I'm not going to have enough and I'm going to run out of money before I run out of life. And so this gives people an opportunity to be a part of something that's predictable. They can say, okay, I get to be a part of this thing that's being built. We know that there's going to be never-ending demand. I mean, whether you love it or hate it, there's like several million people that came across the border that are going to need housing in America. Like in the last couple of years, that just added more pressure to the demand that's needed. So we have this incredible problem, and we solved this little piece of it, and it ends up being a huge opportunity. So I just think that from my experience, watching people get excited about being a part of solving something, not just throwing their money, hoping it gets bigger. They actually see how it's going to happen and how they're impacting the 200 families that we hire, 200 people per facility, these communities that where people they need the jobs. They're outside of major metropolises. So in more rural areas, we're creating jobs. It's like literally building America back again in reality.
Yeah, I love that too. Like, we had a client that we worked with last year. We're still really good friends. It's just we're not doing a campaign for him right now. And part of their investment line is they actually are building homes and stuff in South America. And the way they actually run it is people invest so that the homes get built, and then they set the payments for people that are, paying for these homes at well below market value. So the investors are still making money, but people are getting affordable housing to like actually take care of their families. And like, to me, that's really exciting, man, when everybody can like make a profit, but at the same time, you're helping somebody.
I think you're hitting on something, and there's been this buzzword about stakeholders and equity and all this stuff in the last few years. And what's really cool is when I say all the stakeholders win in this whole thing, the investors, the community, the employees, everybody is winning. The environment, these plants are LEED Gold. So I mean, they're all solar based. So almost all the electricity comes from solar. So like all the things that we're doing, we're being very mindful that it's not a win-lose. It's not like trading commodities where there is a winner and there's a loser. You buy an option, somebody wins, somebody loses. Here, everybody purposefully is winning. And we've designed the whole thing so that everybody's together. Nobody's saying, well, you got more than me. They're just like, man, I'm so glad we're doing this together. So it's a very cool thing. And I think the more that businesses focus on everybody winning together, I think you're going to see a resurgence of what America was. I think that there's more of that to come because we're building and winning together.
Very cool. Damion, it's a very exciting project you're working on, man. For people that want to connect with you, want to find out more about what you're doing, how's going to be the best way for our viewers and listeners to find you?
Best thing to do is check me and check the company out at frametec.com. That's FrameTec.com, and come check it out. There's a cool little video that's like a 4-minute video that you can see exactly what we've been describing that we built, and people can see that and they can connect with me. And here's another cool thing. You get excited. You're like, hey, I want to go see what's happening, what's being built in America. Come out to Arizona, come visit the plant. Like, the team is here. We actually have our investors coming in and people that are curious, they poke around. So it's something you can actually go, and you're near Sedona and some beautiful places in Arizona. So it's a good place, especially in January, February, whenever you are looking at this. You get to leave the snow and the ice and you come someplace where it's actually sunny. So that's what I would suggest. Come check it out. Come see what's being built. It's actually pretty inspiring.
Very cool. Damion Lupo, thanks for joining me today, man.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching, reminder, if you're brand new to this channel, like this video, leave us a comment, let us know what you thought. Also, smash that subscribe button if you want to command your brand to make a bigger impact out there. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.